finish that topic. Well, not really finish the topic, but cover some more ground on that topic. And then we'll move to other topics. Yesterday we went through mainly what the Alter Rebbe spoke about, science in the Biur and Sayin Kuntos Achron. The difference between when she does a B'dikas Shuchat and she sees blood and she sees blood on the sides, and when she doesn't see anything. There's a very interesting Tzemach Tzedek, which is the focus of what I'm going to be speaking on today. So, if you have the book by you, is good. If not, we go downstairs and get it. Be a good idea. And then I'll wait a few seconds and we'll start. נתחיל עוד מעט. Page 174 in this book. It's Tshuva Siman Kuf Chaf. It's a long tshuva, which we could define it as pretty much an explanation of the Alter Rebbe Sifkat Yud Gimel and the Alter Rebbe in that first Kuntres Achron. He goes through what the Alter Rebbe says piece by piece, explains it, asks questions on it, and gives his maskanas based on that. Now, what's interesting about it is you have the question in this tshuva, you have the question, and then rather than just piece by piece an explanation and analysis of the Alter Rebbe's words. The question was, she was Rea Machmas Tashmish 3 times Ritzufim. That's the only time you really have a problem. And then she did a b'dika with a Shpuferet. She found blood on the side of the Shuchat and not on the moich. And the question is, does she need Shiva Nekim or not? That is the question. Right? So he goes, I'm going to summarize pretty much what the Tzemach Tzedek says. A few places I'm going to focus on what it says. We'll start in Sif Aleph. The way the Tzemach Tzedek starts is, he brings first what the Alter Rebbe is medayek in Kuntres Achron, where the Alter Rebbe explains the diuk between Tohir and Tohira, that when you have both words, Tohir and Tohira, that means that Tohir refers to the blood, Tohira refers to her, that Tohir means that the blood that she saw is kosher blood, so she doesn't need Shiva Nekim. Tohira means that she is muteres l'bayla, she doesn't have to get divorced. And therefore she does not need Shiva Nekim, not now, and not in the future, if she sees again. And the Alter Rebbe brings the Rashi, Rambam, and Sefer HaTruma to prove his view on it. And he does not bring the Mordechai and the Mordechai and Ramban. Why is that? The Tzemach Tzedek point out is very simple. Inside the Mordechai, inside the Ramban, they only wrote Tahira. They didn't write Tahir. They didn't write both. So if they only wrote Tahira, obviously means that they're referring to her, that she does not become asur to her husband, that she has to get divorced. But since they didn't want the word Tahir, it means that they think, their opinion, maybe she does need Shiva Nekim. Maybe the blood that she saw is blood that is not mamash minatzdadim, blood that could make her asur. Why exactly? That's a different discussion. But even when she saw on the side,
Tahira in their context means not
asur l'bayla forever. Yeah, that's because the way the Alter Rebbe is medayik. If you look in the lashon of the Alter Rebbe, That's the beginning of the Kuntra Sachren, where he explains the way the Alter Rebbe begins is, because the Alter Rebbe writes, Muteres l'bayla and Sifkot Yud Gimel ve'eino tzricha lizgaresh mimenu. That's a shach. V'gam tehoirohi. She is also tahir. And then, by the way, just you should know that Alter Rebbe puts them out of Mekaymis before his quotes, that you see it in also in other places. Says sometimes after the quotes, sometimes not before, but usually before the quotes. Rashi ran Rambam Sefer HaTruma ve'eino tzricha sfira zayin utvila loy l're'iyo zu ashlishis ve'loy b'chol eis shetire machmas tashmish afilu kama pa'amim. And over here the quote is, the mocker is afterwards, but he says it's 4 people, Rashi, Rambam, and Sefer HaTruma. And on the words V'gam tehoir, the Alter Rebbe explains in Kuntra Sachren, where does he get it from? In Kuntra Sachren he says, Kein kos v'Rashi v'Aran, da Adam tehoir. Yeah, Adam is tehoir. That's why she doesn't shiva nekim. Rambam and Mordechai kos v'dehi tehoira. They don't write dam tahir. Sefer HaTruma b'simonim kof al ha'shayne tahira u'muteres tmeyo v'asura v'chein Rambam kof al ha'shayne tahira u'muteres. Yeah, so those basically the Alter Rebbe just, the Tzemach Tzedek explains to you. These 4 words of the Alter Rebbe, 4 lines of the Alter Rebbe in Kuntra Sachren and 1 line in the Pnim, Tzemach Tzedek explains to you in Ois Aleph what it means. I explained it yesterday, and explained, that's the point, that when you have 2 Lashonos, it means tahir, blood is kosher, and she is fine. Doesn't have to get divorced. When somebody only in the Tzemach Tzedek says the fact that when you look in the Pnim of the Alter Rebbe, he mentions Rashi, Ran, Rambam, and Sefer HaTruma. And the Kuntra Sachren, when he brings to you the Ramban and the Mordechai, he says kos v'dehi tahira, but he doesn't bring them in the Pnim. Why doesn't he bring them in the Pnim? Because in the Pnim he wants to tell you that it's Shiva Nekim, that she doesn't need Shiva Nekim. He's using the people which use the words Tahir, Dam Tahir, or Tahir, and Muteres Tahir, and Tahira, which that means, but since he uses both Lashonos, it refers to her being mutter and doesn't have to get divorced. And the blood, you don't need Shiva Nekim. The blood is also fine. If the words Tahira would mean that she does not need Shiva Nekim, the Alter Rebbe brings the Ramban and the Mordechai right in the beginning of Kuntra Sachren. Why doesn't the Alter Rebbe mention them in the Pnim? In the Pnim, the Alter Rebbe mentions Rashi, Ran, Rambam, Sefer HaTruma. Doesn't mention the Ramban and the Mordechai. So Tzemach Tzedek explains to us, first understand that it could be that from the Ramban and the Lashon of the Mordechai, because they only write Tahira, that she's kosher l'bayla, but she's not. But the dam is not toir. And the exact words of the Tzemach Tzedek, it's the last line in the first column. Second last line. V'nira medivrei Rabbeinu, the svira she'Mordechai v'Ramban ein lo yichiach, she'Mordechai v'Ramban ein lo yichiach dein tzricha shiva nekim, k'ma shekosav rak tahira hi. Yesh lo yomar kavonosam, dehi davko tahira dahainu she'mitzino yisamidin lo yomachmas tashmish. She leaves that category. She becomes mutter to her husband for the purpose of not having to get divorced. The talinon shadam midechakatzdoddim. The blood, we say, the blood came from, we have a tli, the blood that she saw before came from the tzdodim. Avo mikol mokim ein mekilin kol kach letaher hadam legamle shelo latzrich hashiv nekim. Mashenkim miloshin Rashi v'Aran shekos v'dehadam tohir mashma vade she'ein tzrich hashiv nekim. ולכן לא נשם בדברי רבינו שום, רק רש"י ורמב"ם בספר התרומה, ולא נשם גם כמרדכי ורמב"ן. So just as a side point, if you want to, when you learn a Kuntra Sachren, and Alter Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek teaches you how to learn Pashut. You see that he brings you, this whole paragraph just focuses on 2 things, 2 little things that you see over here. On the top he quotes you 4. In the Kuntra Sachren, he brings you 2 more shittas, which he did not mention on the top. And by you putting the two together and seeing the difference in the Shonis, you understand why the Alter Rebbe used specifically these four in the Pnim of the Alter Rebbe. Because these four support the notion that she does not need Shiva Nekiyim. And those two don't. That's simple. Then Tzemach goes to a big question. One of the people that the Alter Rebbe brings, the first one the Alter Rebbe brings is Rashi. According to Rashi, the bdika Shuchat that is done is not really a bdika to make her mutter, l'baylo, to make the blood mutter. The way that the Rashi explained, the way that Rashi explains it, what Tzemach is going to go through it, is that it's only to save her from being osir to her husband, mitzad Rosh Maxmas Tashmish. Right? So the bdika, the way that Rashi defines the bdika is coming here to save this woman from becoming asur l'baylo ilamis, from having to get divorced. So now, 2 plus 2, if she's going to wait Shiva Nekiyim, she's still muteres l'baylo. We solved the problem. The bdika solved the problem. She doesn't have to get divorced. Every woman that does Shiva Nekiyim doesn't mean she's getting divorced. It's part of life. So she's going to move from. So how is that a proof? How is Rashi a proof that she does not do Shiva Nekiyim? Just because she said the word tahir. Rashi uses the word tahir. Now Alter Rebbe wants to bring from the word tahir. That means that the blood is tahir, and she doesn't need Shiva Nekiyim. But the same Rashi also explains to you that the reason why the Roya Maxmas Tashmish, why the bdika helps, is because she doesn't have to get divorced. So the fact that she doesn't have to get divorced doesn't exclude Shiva Nekiyim. She can still have Shiva Nekiyim. So then the Tzemach explains, no, according to Rashi, the way that Rashi explains it, you can't really separate muteres, the lotion of muteres, you can't really separate it into two. And the lotion of Tzemach is based on the way Rashi writes in short, Ella, oy shehi tahira legamre afilu b'lo Shiva Nekiyim. When it's the way the lotion of Rashi is, either she's tahir completely, even without Shiva Nekiyim, oy she'af lebaylo asura achar Shiva Nekiyim k'rei Maxmas Tashmish. The bdika doesn't do half a job. From the lotion of Rashi, although it means that is the bdika and she becomes mutter, we have to explain. I'm not going to go through it. It's a lengthy piece of it, but the point of it is either she's tahira legamre without Shiva Nekiyim, or she'af lebayla asura achar Shiva Nekiyim k'rei Maxmas Tashmish. Yeah, so therefore, and that's what he explains Rashi, and he says, okay, so Rashi goes back to the pile of the people that say you don't need Shiva Nekiyim when she sees in the bdika, when she does bdika Shuchat and she sees on the side, she's still considered, the blood is considered minat tzdadim. It cancels the requirement of Shiva Nekiyim for this one, cancels the requirement of Shiva Nekiyim anytime going forward also, because this proves that the Roya Maxmas Tashmish was not, the Roya Bishas Tashmish was not Maxmas Tashmish, rather it was because of whatever reason, a deichak or whatever it is that caused blood minat tzdadim, and the same deichak that caused it before, during the 3 times that she saw Bishas Tashmish, is the same one that caused it when bdika Shuchat, and it's going to be the same one that's going to cause it weiter. So therefore she's mutter. Yeah, or like the Tzemach writes in the Kitzur, יש לו תארץ מכל מקום סביר לדעי אפשר לטהר או לחצוין מכמה טיימים. Explain a few reasons. Yeah, you can't do tahar or לחצוין. Either she's fine or she's not fine. Then the Tzemach goes to the next piece. That's Ois Beis. Continues with the Alter Rebbe. That when the Alter Rebbe says, when the Alter Rebbe brings a raya from the Rashba and from the Rosh, the way the Rosh explains the Ravid, and the Shoyel, there's a Rabbi Yitzchak, a Shoyel in the Noda B'Yehuda, when I ask the question, it's printed in the Noda B'Yehuda, all of those, and they all, that they don't need Shiva Nekiyim. Right? And then the Noda B'Yehuda actually asks a question on it, the question which we spoke about yesterday, that what raya do you have v'raya min tzdadim on the Shuchat, that this is how it was also during Tashmish. Maybe it wasn't the makar and it dripped down by itself. And then when you did the b'dika sheferes, it came up on the sides. Right, that's what the Rabbi Yehuda asks. We don't really consider this question because we already spoke yesterday from a different shul. The Alter Rebbe has a proof later on in the Shulchan Aruch that we're not choishish to this chashash that maybe was we leave her in the cheskas tahara. We're not choishish to this chashash that she saw that there was blood and it went down. V'chulu v'chulu. And Tzemach Tzedek explains an interesting point, which he also discusses in the first seif. This b'dika is, because there is a certain, we'll call it a mentality, a certain view on this question of b'dika. If you're going to put רואה מחמת תשמיש as a category of vestus, and you're going to say vestus derabanan, therefore the b'dika is matzalah from a chashash derabanan, so that's where we're mekel. Tzemach Tzedek says no. Sign sif alf, sign over here in sif beis. Says no. The b'dika is a b'dika which is matziv from a chashash de'iraisa, regardless of whether you consider vessus derabanan or vessus de'iraisa. It's still the chashash. It's still a chashash de'iraisa. Why is still a chashash de'iraisa? Because if she's going to actually see dam nida during tashmish, then the husband is boil nida, which is chayav kodesh, which is a de'iraisa. You want to put vestus, yes, vestus is the Rabbanon, if you want to follow vestus the Rabbanon, defining what the Isser is to the woman after 3 times. Yeah, that's a question of vestus, and that's a question you want to know. There's 2 ways, we'll just take a 1-minute break to discuss that. I mentioned there's 2 ways, if you want to consider it vestus, there's really 2 ways of looking at it. And both ways are mentioned in the Alter Rebbe, and some people understand the Alter Rebbe one way, some people understand the Alter Rebbe both. The other way, sometimes you could say it's either or. Just a very short Alter Rebbe. It's much later in the Simon. It's in Lamed Tes, Sifkat and Lamed Tes of the Alter Rebbe. Yeah, where he talks about that she sees Rei Adam B'Shas Tashmish 1 time, she's Muteres L'Shamish a 2nd and a 3rd time. The Alter Rebbe says, Mikol Mokim Cheshesh L'Mei HaChodesh. She sees Roueh Machmas Tashmish on Chav Beis, whatever it is. Then next month Chav Beis, she's still going to be Chodesh because maybe it was a Yom HaChodesh that caused it. Shem Yom HaChodesh, Garam L'Ris Machmas Tashmish, Tzirich Halifish B'Yom Zeh B'Chodesh L'Achalav, Kedin Isha. And why is that? Kedin Isha Aroya De Mikrim She'iru Begufo, Befihuk Ve'itush V'Kayotze Bohem, Oy Achilas Dvorim HaMechamimim Keshum U'Botza V'Kayotze Bohem, Oy Shero Asa Al Yidei Oynes Kekfitza V'Kayotze Bo, Shetzirich Halochash V'Sachesh V'Aflok, Kalkaman Simu Kuf Peites, Sifit Zayin, Sifit Tes Ba'ago, which you already learned Kuf Peites before, so you already know the difference between what's the Mikrim She'iru Begufa. You have Piyoko Itush is one category, Vesas that comes as Achilas Dvorim Charifim is another category, not Charifim Mechamimim, or Kofta V'Rasa. So if you want to see which category does Roueh Machmas Tashmish fall into, the Alter Rebbe gives you 3 options. It says, he puts them in all 3. There's no place that the Alter Rebbe clearly defines, tells you that the Isser of Roueh Machmas Tashmish fits into Vesas Aguf, Vesas Akfitzis, or Vesas of eating something, whichever one of those alternative Vestas. But it's clear that Alter Rebbe does look at it as a form of Vestas. Right? So let's go back to what we said before. So we look at it as a form of Vestas. When a woman sees Machmas Tashmish, to make her Asura L'Bayla is within Vestas. 3 times. She Roueh Machmas Tashmish becomes Asura L'Bayla Machmas Vestas. Why? Every other Vestas is a way to save yourself from. She passes it without seeing it. Roueh Machmas Tashmish, there's no way to do it. Because if Tashmish brings a Vestas, there's never going to be a way that she's going to be able to have Tashmish without seeing, so there's no way to save it. That's the B'dika. B'dika Shviferes is the alternative to doing that. The B'dika Shviferes is pretty much like having Tashmish without an Isser. And then if that comes out clear, so you canceled, so to speak, you canceled the Vesas. Just interestingly, there is a certain shitta that you have to do 3 times, as mentions, there is a svara that you have to do 3 times the B'dika. To cancel 3 times you have the B'dika Shviferes. Nobody, the vast majority of the poskim don't hold like that. 1 B'dika is enough. But there is such a shit that you have to do 3 bdikas. Why? It's a veses. You want to be oiker veses? 3 times. If she saw 3 times. And then you have to do bdika 3 times. Anyway, so back. So the point is that Tzemach Tzedek tells you, take that concept out of your mind. The bdika is saving you from chashash de'iraisa. If you're going to start saying only saving from chashash de'rabanan, and you think you're getting yourself into a much easier thing, it's not going to help you. The bdika is to save you from chashash de'iraisa. Therefore, we have to understand what the bdika does. If you understand what the bdika does, you understand how it saves you from chashash de'iraisa, then you can understand. That's the first way. You have to be more machmer in such a bdika. You can't just say, oh, it's de'rabanan and we're mekel. And he says that base, in Sif base, he says base in the Rashba and other people, this bdika saves it from chashash de'iraisa. Also in Sif Aleph, when he talks about the Rashi, he also says that this bdika, according to Rashi, saves it from chashash de'iraisa. Yeah, and even according to them, even if you want to say that the reason what Tzemach Tzedek brings it says, even according to the people which hold the vesses the Rabbanon, Lav Dafka, they're going to say that she's mutter without Shiva Nakim. According to people who say the verses deraisa, for sure it's going to be hard to say she's mutter without Shiva Nakim. Even according to one who say derabbanan, it's still going to be a chashash to say that she does not need Shiva Nakim. Why? Because this bdika has nothing to do with verses derabbanan. The bdika has to do with the chashash of deraisa. It's a chashash deraisa. Maybe you can't be makel so fast without Shiva Nakim. But just remember that the Alter Rebbe's simple understanding is that when she sees Minat Tzdadim, she does not need Shiva Nakim. And the Tzemach Tzedek goes through that, analyzes each one of the Rayas and some other ones, and the Maskoni is going to pass like the Alter Rebbe, but he asks questions and all on it. And that's what we're doing today. Now it comes Ois Gimel of the Tzemach Tzedek. Ois Gimel brings the Kreisio Plesi, which the Alter Rebbe also brings. And the crazy place he holds that you do need Shiva Nakim. And he asks him a common sense question, the crazy place. When she sees blood minatzad on the side of the Shuchat, it's clear, it's a clear raya, it's mevarer, it's a birur, that any blood that she saw machmas tashmish up until now b'shas tashmish is because the tashmish causes that you should see blood minat tzdadim. And therefore, why does the crazy place say you do need Shiva Nakim? And he asks a question on him, and he says, the Poel of the Alter Rebbe brings the Raya from the Rashba and the Ran that you don't need Shiva Nakim, and that's how we look at it. Then comes Ois Dalet. Ois Dalet is a very interesting one. He brings a Chavas Das. He starts by opening a statement on the Chavas Das, and he says that the Chavas Das, the exact lashon, Himtzi Svore Chadoshe, invented a new idea. And what's the new idea of the Chavas Das? That what's the purpose? What's Rouah Machmas Tashmish? Yechayshesh are two things. Yechayshesh, either she has a certain sickness, a certain choili that is called Memalav and Nefetzes, the body fills up with blood, the rechem fills up with blood, and Nefetzes during Tashmish, it causes it to release the blood out. Or Veses Chimud, because of Chimud, Tashmish. And then he asks a question on both of them. And that's a question that Wilhelm asked yesterday. You. And he asks as follows. Yeah, because Chavas Das says the bdika clarifies if she doesn't have any of these. The Tzemach Tzedek says the bdika doesn't help you for one, doesn't help you for chimud, doesn't help you for malav and nefetzes. Doesn't help you for either of them. If you want to say that it's machmas chimud, but shoferes help you nothing. It's not the same. So the fact that she didn't see b'bdika shoferes doesn't mean that she's not going to see by tashmish. Chimud is excitement. It's not the same excitement. So, If you say Vesses Deraisa, for sure it's a problem. If you say Vesses Derabbanan, it still is a problem, because we already explained before that even if you say Vesses Derabbanan, V'yeh Chashash Deraisa. And even if you want to say, like, let's buy Shavos, and it becomes a suffix, you're moving it from the category that maybe if the Shuferes would have been the same size, it would have had the same effect. So now we're really only a suffix. Still, it's still a suffix deraisa. And more importantly, Sefer HaTruma says when it comes to the Machmas, you need to speak sveika, not a suffix. And when you want to say, if you want to say that it proves about Meleya v'Nefetzes, it also doesn't help anything. Why? For a simple reason, because the Ramban, who was kodim to the Chavas Das, generational, he says that for this chayli, B'dikah Sheferes doesn't help. It doesn't prove that that's what happened. So therefore, after these questions on the Chavas Das, the Tzemach Tzedek concludes with a pretty sharp statement: Im kein vadai harav Beis Yosef lo yisvir li klal das haChavas Das. The Beis Yosef didn't hold of the Chavas Das. The Chavas Das is much later, but it says it's clear that what the Beis Yosef writes doesn't fit in any way, shape, or form with the Chavas Das. Then Tzemach Tzedek brings next one is the Beis Ephraim. Does not mention an Alter Rebbe, the Beis Ephraim, for obvious reasons. Just generation wasn't generational, and that the Beis Ephraim was matir only when you have another reason together with it. First of all, he says that Beis Ephraim doesn't give you any real clarity, but the Beis Ephraim is noted that the only time when you could be mekel without Shiva Nikim is when the Rouah Machmas Tashmish came together with another Tzad Godel Hakel. For example, if Rouah Machmas Tashmish, it was without Hargosha. If she was without Hargosha, so we have a Tzad Godel Hakel. So together with that, we'll say that when you do a B'dikah Sheferes afterwards, then you could be matir. And why is that? Explains a very interesting, Tzemach Tzedek, the way he understands the Beis Ephraim is a very interesting idea. But only when she sees Minat Zdodim. When a woman sees 3 times Machmas Tashmish, it's a chazaka. Right? Now, if you're going to do a b'dikah, and you're going to find Dam Minat Zdodim, what you did just now is you retroactively converted this chazaka into a kosher chazaka. It became a chazaka lahatir. Why? Because when she saw now Minat Zdodim, that means that every time that Rouah b'shas Tashmish, it's also Minat Zdodim. So the previous 3 times that she saw Minat Zdodim, that she saw was Minat Zdodim, it became a chazaka that the previous 3 times, a chazaka lahatir. So that's why going further, every time she's going to be mutter. But, Tzemach Tzedek says, still in all, you can't be matir Shiva Nikim if you don't have another svara with it. Now, even though Tzemach Tzedek does not give a maskone on this tshuva, it does seem that from the Shins of Tzemach Tzedek and this, I say that he's noted to this idea. Huh? זה סיפור אחר, בימים בטוחים. לא בטוח אם זה ממש חזוקה, בגלל שאם זה גורם, אז זה לא חזוקה. אבל אם אתה אומר שזה... לא, אם זה גורם שהיא תראה נידה, אם אנחנו אומרים שלא נכנסה שזה בגלל שהיא לא עד נידה, אז אין לך דבר כזה ימים בטוחים. ימים בטוחים זה כשאתה יודע בטוח שאין לך. ימים בטוחים לא נהפך לימים בטוחים עד שאין לך 3 פעמים, שאין. פה לא היה לך 3 פעמים, כי לא יהיה מחסה, שלא יהיה מחסה, שלא יהיה מחסה. עכשיו זה נהפך לחזוק רטרואקטיבית, שזה ככה. Yeah. Yeah, and he finishes כבר נסבר דקושר להוקל אפילו ברס הגים פעם רצופים אם לא כשיש עוד צד גודל להוקל. And in the Kitzur, that's also how he writes it. נסבר כשיש עוד צד גודל להוקל, אפשר שיש להוקל שעל ידי בדיקה שפופרת שנמצא אדם בצדדים יש להתיר בלי שיעור נקיים. And what's a tzad godel lahokol? Gives you examples. שתיראה אחר כך מחמת תשמיש שלו ידי הרגוש רק שנמצא דם על שלו על שלו. Yeah, that's an example of a tzad godel lahokol. מיודף לא יהיה מחמת תשמיש שתחילו גימל פעולים מרצופים ואחר כך בודקה בשפופרת שנמצא בצדדים, because then we retroactively convert the chazaka to be matter. Then the Tzemach Tzedek goes in Sif Vav Zayin. He discusses if she was Roya Machmas, if she did the Bdika Sheferes and she didn't see anything. We'll get back to it soon. And Ois Tes, he goes back to that she did see Minat Tzdodim. We're going to go back and forth. And when it comes to Ois Tes, he says that he has from the words of the Alter Rebbe later on, there is a raya to the people that say that you need Shiva Nakim even when she sees Minat Tzad. Why? Because the way one of the things Alter Rebbe explains is when she sees Machmas Tashmish, she does not see Ritzufim. We don't say that the Tashmish is Goyrem the Dam, right? What do we say? We say that maybe there was a Nida, her period came then. So, therefore, if you want to be Materit, flips it the other way. If you say that Machmas Tashmish, we have a chashash every time, maybe it's a period, and not the Tashmish was not what caused it, it just happens to be that it worked out the same day, the same time. So then, when you're going to do a bdika later on and say that she saw Minat Tzdodim, that she didn't, if she saw Minat Tzdodim, this time she saw Minat Tzdodim for whatever reason. It doesn't mean that all the previous times she didn't see Minat Tzdodim. All the previous times she didn't see a period. Could be it was a period. And therefore you don't have you're not solving the original question. The original question is, she saw Machmas Tashmish, and now we prove that she did not see Machmas Tashmish, she saw Minat Tzdodim. But if the previous times we have a chashash, maybe it was a period that just came and just worked out the same day, for whatever reason, then the fact that she sees now Minat Tzdodim doesn't solve the previous three times. Maybe the previous times were not. Yeah, so he says no, but ultimately the Alter Rebbe does hold. He says bepoil, when you look at it, he says bepoil. The Metzias is that if she does see, you can't say this chashash when she sees three times of tzufim, which is what we're worried about. You can't say this chashash maybe was a period. No, we say it's not a period. And the fact that she saw, it was definitely min hatzdadim. And therefore the bdika does help. And therefore the bdika does help for this idea. And he concludes bringing what I mentioned before, the idea that maybe you need three bdikas with the sheferes. No, Tzemach Tzedek just brings it as a question, doesn't say yes, doesn't say no, leaves it hanging. Yeah, that is when it comes to the topic of seeing on the side. Now let's go back to Vav Zayin, which is what Tzemach Tzedek discusses about when she does a bdika sheferes and she does not see anything. She does not see anything. The Alter Rebbe brings different shittas. This is what we discussed. Is it, we brought all the shittas, is it that when she doesn't see anything, it's a proof that every other time she saw Minat Tzdodim, or is it a proof of Nisrapis? And based on that, the question is whether she becomes completely cured. It's my cell phone. Nothing I can do about it. whether we say that nisrapes and therefore she going forward, she still needs shiva nakim, or we say that even though we don't see anything that's dodim, it's still that's dodim and she does not need shiva nakim. And there's two shittas. The Alter Rebbe brings the rayas mainly for the svara that she does not need shiva nakim, that it's minatz dodim, but the Alter Rebbe concludes that bepoyel can't be makel against the Ramon, therefore she does need shiva nakim. Yeah, so first he summarizes the shittas that Alter Rebbe brings. He asks some questions on the Emunah Shmuel, that what's going to help if she does this bdika one time on it. One time, first he brings that if it's nisrapes, then she needs shiva nakim, and according to Emunah Shmuel, she does not need shiva nakim. And then he asks some questions on the Emunah Shmuel, and then the Alter Rebbe then explains the svara of the Beis Yosef, that you can medayik from the Beis Yosef, that the Beis Yosef also holds that when she does not see anything, just the lashon of the Beis Yosef puts both together, that even when she does not see anything, it's still considered that the other times was minatz dodim. And why is it? It says it becomes, right, we have a suffix, and when she does not see on the moich, it becomes reglaim ledavar, and it unbalances the suffix ashaku, unbalances it towards the tzad of tahir, and therefore she is fine. And he explains, it's interesting, he explains it to Biur Dvarov, this is in Sif Zayin, explains the Tzemach Tzedek, page 178, Biur Dvarov, says, Hainu shedezeh shaloi nimtza sheferes klum. When there's nothing found in the, according to the Beis Yosef, whether you don't find anything in the sheferes, or shenimtza al tzedei sheferes, or you do find it, it's still ein raya gemura mesapekes mitzad atzmoi loy midayraise loy mashadam shachschilo gan pol metzodim. It's not really enough of a raya to say that every time she saw machmas tashmish, mishas tashmish, was minatz dodim. Right? Why is that? Because you could still say, even if you're going to say that Roe minatz dodim, even by Roe minatz dodim, we could say maybe she saw not because of Shuferes, not. But the other times it was. But the other times, Masharei Machmas Tashmish, she had the regular period. It is nidasa, nothing to do with Tashmish. Yeah, therefore, this is not the bdika itself is not enough of a raya to cancel all of them. Rather, it's a reglaim l'dover, that when she saw machmas tashmish 3 times, according to Svare, we would say that the tashmish is what caused the blood to be seen 3 times, and the bdika shviferes proves to you that no, the fact that this came out clean means that it's not machmas tashmish, it must be something else, and that something else must be min hatzdadim. So therefore, it was a suffix shokul, maybe min hatzdadim, maybe from it, and the bdika came and gave you a reglaim l'dover to unbalance the suffix shokul, and therefore it's fine. And so Tzedek asks a big question. He says, "They have a nice divrei. I don't understand what the Alter Rebbe is trying to say." First of all, b'chlal, who says Rei machmas tashmish suffix shokul? First question is, just logically, is not suffix shokul. For whatever reason, the majority of the blood over there comes from the rechem, and everything. You can't say suffix min hatzdadim, suffix min harechem. You can say machmas tashmish every time she saw. So machmas tashmish is not really a suffix shokul.
That's nowadays. The Alter Rebbe and the Rambam, the Rambam hold it is a suffix shokul. The Rambam holds that it's an equal option of min hatzdadim and min harechem.
Right. He says b'chlal, first it's not a suffix shokul. First, he asks on Alter Rebbe. That's the first question asked on Alter Rebbe. He says, "Lo yavino isi divrei kotshei, milvad sheyesh lefakpek b'ma shekosov, ma shekosov rachmas mitzvah b'sofik shokol chulu." Doesn't explain what the question is. Just the first question. Oidzos, here's another question. If she saw machmas tashmish even one time, and then one time she did not see machmas tashmish, and then she did see one time machmas tashmish, maybe that should be enough of a raya that it's min hatzdadim. If you want to go based on this, that the b'dika shpuferet, the fact that you don't see anything, is enough of a raya that it's enough of a raya to say that it's min hatzdadim. So if she sees one time machmas tashmish, second time she does not see machmas tashmish, and the third time she does see machmas tashmish, the second time the fact that there was tashmish and there was nothing, same as b'dika shpuferet, because there's nothing. So obviously, the first time she saw was min hatzdadim for whatever reason, and the third time, which is the second time she saw, was also min hatzdadim, and therefore she does not need shiva nekim b'chlal. She doesn't need anything. Right? Because if you're going, because then you're going to say, then you have the suffix shokol, and you did some form of b'dika, and you have the suffix shokol, and you unbalance the b'dika, because suffix shokol was maybe it comes from the lechem, maybe not, maybe it comes from the tzdadim. Here we see clearly that at one point she did similar to b'dika shpuferet. She was with her husband, and nothing came out, and there was no blood whatsoever, similar to b'dika shpuferet. So maybe that solved the problem of b'dika shpuferet. Yeah, and you also have reglayim l'davar. Why? Because there was one time with nothing. There was tashmish one time, real tashmish, not shpuferet, and there was no blood. So it's reglayim l'davar, and you unbalance the suffix hashokol. And that should be a proof that any blood she saw b'shas tashmish was min hatzdadim. That's the question. It's against the understanding. He says it's against the understanding of the Rashba. And it's against, and he says that, and then he says that Taz Divrei Rabbeinu. We could explain what the Alter Rebbe holds, that the Rashba holds the Shita say, and maybe the first time we're going to say that, and the reason we can't use it as a proof, like I said, that you can do one time yes, one time no, one time yes. Maybe why don't use it as proof? Very simple, like we mentioned before, that if she sees one time and not three pa'amim ritzufim, each of those times we might be able to say that she saw that when she saw those times, it was a period came. It was b'chlal to do with tashmish. So the time that she didn't see is not a proof to undo those times. To rephrase it again, when you have the svara was that she was roya machmas tashmish b'shas tashmish the first time, and then she was not roya b'shas tashmish the second time, and then she was roya the third time b'shas tashmish. The question of Yosef was, maybe that second time that she did not see serves as a b'dika shpuferet that helps you to unbalance the suffix hashokol and to add a reglayim l'davar. So he says no, because that he says, and the question is because that second time there was tashmish and she didn't see, so it cancels the first time that it was roya machmas tashmish. So he says no, because the Rashba l'shita say that he holds that if when it's one time, two times, we're not choishish that is machmas tashmish until three times in a row at sufim. It doesn't begin to be considered machmas tashmish. The third time retroactively makes all three machmas tashmish. But the first and second time we don't say machmas tashmish. We say maybe the period came. So if the first time she saw, we say, oh, maybe the period came that day. Second time she didn't see, the period didn't come. You didn't solve any of the questions. You never dealt with the suffix min hamoker min harecha. I mean min hamoker min hatzdadim. And you don't have reglayim l'davar either. Because the solution, the second time, didn't solve the question of the first time. The second time just tells you there was no period. The first time there was a period, second time there wasn't a period. Third time there was a period. Third time that she was with her husband, but she didn't see. That she did see. The only time we could go and say machmas tashmish and then be able to cancel it and say min hatzdadim is only when you created a chazakah of machmas tashmish. And now you have to undo this chazaka. So when you created the chazaka machmas tashmish, you became a suffix. You have a suffix now. You have to prove the suffix. The suffix is min harechem or min hatzdadim. Was it caused? And if it's min harechem, another suffix. Was it caused by tashmish? But we don't have any way to prove it. And then that's when you do the b'dika sheferes. But without that, without creating, establishing a rouah machmas tashmish chazaka, you can't undo it. So you left with the same suffix, and you left with no raglayim l'dover. So that's why this doesn't work. This question is not a good question against the Bis Yosef. Rather, the answer is no. When you have 3, and then you don't see the 4 with the b'dika sheferes, that's when we say that is a proof that it's not machmas tashmish, and b'meila we must say that every other time before that was min hatzdadim. But if it would be not like that, if it would not be 3 times, if the b'dika would be otherwise, then we would say it was a period here, a period there. We're not sure exactly how it came. And that's why the hoichocha, what the Bis Yosef says, that it's a proof that she was roya, that every time was min hatzdadim, could only come after you have a chazak of rouah machmas tashmish, b'shas tashmish. 3 times in a row b'shas tashmish, that creates a shaila of machmas tashmish, and then you're able to solve it with the b'dika. But until you don't have that first established chazaka, you can't be able to cancel it. To be able to cancel something, you first have to be able to create it. Otherwise, you're not canceling anything. If you make a b'dika sheferes after 1 time machmas tashmish, doesn't help you anything. Because maybe she saw a period the first time. That's taka true. To be able to cancel, you need 3 times. That is svara. I hope that it was clear enough. If not, you could learn it inside. I think it's a little bit more complicated the way it's written inside than the way I did it. And I pretty much, that is what it is. If you want to see something very interesting, I'm going to finish. I have another 1 minute. There's a short shuvah. I'm not going to read it now. Very short shuvah from the Tzemach Tzedek, Kuf Ches, where it's about, it's page 150, just the answer, where the Tzemach Tzedek pretty much summarizes all the shittas you're going to need into 1 short paragraph. You just have to look at them, check the shittas, and everything will work out. Okay, tzlacha.